All right, for today's paint over and critique, we're doing a student's take on the Mother Brain boss fight from Super Metroid. I think it's off to a fantastic start, though this would be a classic case of I think you'd rather imply rather than show too much. So my first instinct in this is to turn down a lot of the lights and to imply with shapes to increase the atmosphere, and hopefully that'll make the mood a little more unsettling because we can't see and reveal as much. Now the overall critique was about 16 minutes long, so in a time frame like that, what I try to do is address the largest problems as quickly as possible. So I'm cutting lots of shapes out and trying to have them play off each other. Now I'm trying to push a little bit of that greenish yellow, a little bit of that. I think it'll make it feel a little more alien and a little more unsettling to me. And so that's why I try to push or introduce that color into this, which won't be too much of a stretch anyway, because it's already got a lot of oranges and grays and stuff. But in a situation like this, where the architecture is fairly specific, it's prevalent all throughout the scene, but it's not exactly refined and designed perfectly yet. So I definitely advise to just hint and show at pieces of it. Maybe pick out a few spot highlights, maybe show some bounce light, but without showing too much of it, because it would take a little bit more design work, in my opinion, on the back end to kind of really flesh that out to a point where you really push that lighting. So see, I'm going across big shapes in this canvas, working the tones and the colors, trying to bring up how menacing and dangerous this could potentially be. And so eventually I'll work my way to the boss character back there, Mother Brain itself, and yeah, hopefully we'll get that, popping with a little bit of cooler accent colors. I had to take a moment to downsize the canvas. Sometimes students do submit work that is a lot larger than I prefer to work on, so that's that. So anyways, I'm going to invert that current selection and basically kind of get a little bit more, remove more detail. That is basically the theme of this critique session here, is to see how much detail we can strip away but still say more. Sometimes we do not need to show the viewer every card in our hand. So I'm going to go a little overboard at this point. I'm just going to throw a little bit of that atmosphere in, some more like that heat. I want to feel that a little bit more coming up from there. So I'm going to remove a little bit of detail, and then I'll, in a way, kind of get some of that back. It's tricky to kind of balance it with the right amount of color versus not. The original felt a little bit too gray and garish, and we didn't have enough of that pungent use of like the ochres, the dark browns, and some of these crimson colors. So just removing a little bit of that. Now I'm going to basically start to manually paint in some of this bounce light coming in from the lava, and apply a little bit on the top. So see, if I push a little bit more blue on the top of these panels, that'll make them pop off the warmer bottom. So just using this really quick, crude, and that's usually a disclaimer I give with some of the quicker critiques I have to do, is that this isn't exactly how I would do it, but it's painting the essence of what I would aim for if I were to sit down with this, for a couple hours. But either way, it shows that you can often course correct an entire image, no matter the complexity, with very little time. If you just use really big brushes and address the largest problems, and not focus on the details. I'm not really zooming in for any of this. So see, if I go a little bit dark and warm there, I can push the warm bounce light, or not bounce light, but the bottom light from the lava below. And these are a little bit of that color range that the original was missing. I think it fits just nicely back there. And it makes the top readable as well, a little bit better. I could force a little, obviously a little more variety into that, but in that's take a little more time and be a little more in the later stages as I'm fine-tuning this. But hopefully that'll get the idea across, especially compared to the original, which I should have just kind of placed in the corner of the screen at this point. So the other thing I want to do is probably take some of these yellow lights and these warm lights in the environment. Anything that's facing downward, I'd probably want to start pushing that light kind of firmly in there. Now I'm just pushing some of those shapes that are lost on the character itself. So I have to kind of go back to a layer and just darken a lot of that just for the forms to start to read a little bit more. So here I'm going to go to levels and just up that contrast on the character, and you'll see the colors start to have a little bit more of a pop. They'll feel a little deeper, a little more rich, just like here. It feels very fleshy, which is kind of what I wanted. I'm also darkening it a little bit so I could imply a little bit of cool light hitting kind of like the front of the face, just a little bit. So I'm selecting all these areas, maybe on some of these corners of the platforms, where some of this blue light, subtle blue light from above may be coming down to illuminate some of this. And I like that color just as a nice kind of contrast to the all the warms that are kind of ambiently lit throughout the scene. So I would push a very specific highlight. And again, I usually just, for the sake of these demonstrations, I definitely go a little too far with that, and I'm not taking the time to capture how subtle this is, because that would require quite a bit more time. But this is the idea that I at least like, and I would go for if this was my image, right? I'd push some of these top lights. I'd figure out what's in cast shadow, what's not, and yeah, maybe push a little more of these cooler tones right up there. And then one of the last things I will do after that is try to put through the atmosphere a little bit of that haze and that blue light kind of coming through. See, I keep using the wrong mode. But see, just a little bit of that cool light at the end of the mother brain there really helps it pop out from the warmer shadows. And this is where, like, okay, if I do have light in this upper left that's blue, I could start to figure out which specific pieces of the buildings and of these structures I could just start to highlight and imply. Still not really showing too much, but it's a great way to make the scene feel a little more detailed than it probably actually is. So this is coming in with basically just like a giant airbrush with these bluer tones, and I'm just going to push and stretch and blend that, right into the scene. So you get a nice, when the blue is meeting like those yellows and those reds, you can get a subtle like transition of green in there as well that adds nicely to the palette. So again, I went a little too far with that, and it's all about the subtlety and how I can kind of capture some of that light coming in. But yeah, there's the original. So yeah, we got a lot more color and a lot more atmosphere in it, which is usually one of my goals. But I also noticed I lost a lot of these great kind of wires and hoses and tubes and a lot of the the nice effect that was back there that I think adds a lot to the image. So I'm just going to quickly get those back in. Again, I want to bring the atmosphere, the environment color, usually into every object in some form or another, no matter how subtle it is. It makes everything feel really cohesive, and that it fits together in that same type of environment. Now, one thing I didn't do, but I would love to go and explore more, is light little things up, with those little sci-fi lights, little dots. Another element to bring the environment to life and really help sell this character and scene. Also, in a similar situation from a prior student, same kind of setup, similar problem. This scene is in a dark, kind of cavernous dragon shrine of sorts. Very cool idea, but the lighting completely misses the mark in order to kind of convey that mood, that feeling, and that atmosphere, that we want. And one way to kind of check this, if looking at it up here in the navigator, it's still not kind of clear to you on what is working, what's not working. One other trick you can do, so that would be number one, is to look up at the navigator to see how it looks very small as a thumbnail. You can also flip it horizontally to see if anything catches your eye at this point. It's a nice way of giving you a fresh take on your scene and let you see things essentially with a new perspective. Not nearly enough people kind of do this, and it certainly can help. Alright, so that's one thing. The third thing would be to just desaturate it. Make it small, or look at it again up in the navigator. How is it reading? See, when I look at this, all of this kind of just blends together, kind of when I squint my eyes at it. Not nearly reading as quickly or as easily as I would want things to for a viewer, just so I can kind of capture their attention. And so that's a good kind of sign that there's some structural problems going on. So what I did was very similar to the previous example, and I just simplified a lot of the information. I tried to make the focal point here, readable, very close. I played cool against warm, warm against cool, and played up some of the atmosphere to kind of just tone things down and scale it back. So see, we have dark silhouette shapes highlighted by these nice lava pits in the background. And I didn't want to change too much of the student's idea. I just tried to show how they can make their existing composition kind of work within this kind of given structure. So hopefully these kind of tips will help you if you're working on a dark, dimly lit interior scene that requires a lot of atmosphere and mood. And thank you for watching. Thanks for watching, particularly if you made it to the end here. If you'd like to support the channel, please like, share, and comment. You can find me on Facebook, ArtStation, and Instagram. Now, I share different content on each platform, so feel free to stalk me across the web. Feel free to join the Brush Sauce community as linked below. We do hangouts, have a Discord channel, host challenges, and support each other in artistic growth. Finally, if you'd like to inquire about my one-on-one mentorship program, head over to tyleredlinart.com, click on the mentorship tab for information, and shoot me an email. Also, I run 2 courses at the Computer Graphics Master Academy. Feel free to check out those as well. Take care.